I'm not gonna lie about something that occupies me a lot. I like having orgasms and I should not be ashamed of that.
I believe it is fair to say that every woman's vagina is differently pleased, but I refuse to accept that the penetration-focused sex culture celebrated in the media actually works for the majority of women.
Everyone says that sexual pleasure is harder to achieve for women than for men, although I believe it is not more difficult if you know your body well and are not afraid to communicate with your partner.
Women and sexual pleasure is a topic which is given little to no attention, and yet it is a huge part of our daily lives. With this documentary and using our own survey findings throughout, we hope to open up the dialogue about the portrayal of sexual pleasure in our society.
For me, sexual pleasure is this whole sum of a puzzle, basically, whereas the orgasm is this tiny little, the cherry top on it. Whereas if you have it, wonderful, but you don't need to.
I think when you're having sex, sexual pleasure is where it's not just the actual getting to that climax, it's just the whole experience.
What sexual desire means to me is a desire that is something that is healthy, something that we have normally, especially for women just as much as men. Where I also think that often in media or through talks, we always focus a lot on men's sexual pleasure. But I think it's completely obvious that women have exactly the same drive towards sex. And the reason we talk about it is sexual desire. Otherwise, what's the point?
Most women tell me that the most important for them, the most valuable, is to be close related, to be intimate with their partner. And that's even more important than have an orgasm of high arousal.
I feel like the best time for sexual intercourse is when it's just you feel so connected to the point where, this feels completely right.
I actually had a funny experience because I come from a very patriarchal society where, in terms of sexual pleasure as well, just because of the culture there, women are only supposed to please the man, and women's sexuality does not exist per se, So I also kind of felt like I needed to break away from that. I was just like, oh, whatever, my worth is not defined by my virginity, la 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 la, talking about just had these more liberal kind of ideas in my head. And so I kind of adopted these thoughts about sex that were my own. For example, I thought I was very comfortable with sex. I thought that I was more liberal and stuff. But my parents always told me that you had to remain pure and, you had to wait for marriage and stuff like that. And so when I didn't wait for marriage, I remember I felt so ashamed of myself. And it was such a subconscious thing because I didn't regret it. I didn't feel like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or, I wasn't the wrong person or anything. But there was something in me that felt so ashamed because I felt like now I was worth less because I'm not pure. And I didn't think of these things consciously, but I think they were so ingrained in my mind that as a result, I immediately felt ashamed and I couldn't understand why,
So when I was 15, I got sexually assaulted by 4 guys during this language course. And I never actually talked about it because it was, I was ashamed, oh, what could have I had changed? And it took away a lot of things from me. Like, experiencing sexual pleasure is more something that my head is telling me I should have rather than actually me having it. And I think that you get a high, but the high is more your hormones, going through your brain, your body, and getting that, feeling. But so I think that that's maybe the sexual desire I'm feeling right now, but it's not like, yeah, I would want it to be, or how I wish it would be, or, it's like, I feel like it's not 100% yet.
It seems that there is no agreed upon definition when it comes to sexual pleasure. Also, from our survey, we found that people often struggle to formulate a clear definition for themselves. Something that came up in our research was that people are longing for greater communication on sex in general.
Although if I look at the relationship with my parents are divorced, but before they got divorced, sex was a kind of, in my opinion, a bit of a taboo at home. Not that it was not encouraged by my parents to talk about it, it was just that I felt it was some kind of distance between me and my parents to talk about it. And that still remains to this day.
I think the biggest influence is your family dynamic. Like, where is sex seen? Is it a huge taboo? Is it something you talk about? Or is it something which you can teach your children and inform them and help them know that it's actually a loving thing, and you can actually have so much fun having sex, and it's not something which is seen as complete taboo.
It depends also on the atmosphere at home, and the peer group and the parents. When the parents like sex and are a little bit transparent in it, they show it also in a safe way. That even helps children to be confident with it. That's okay to have sex and to like it too.
76% of the men who answered our survey have the feeling that women do not communicate their own sexual desires. Interestingly, when women were asked if they made a conscious effort to communicate with their partner, 68% said that they did. So, besides your upbringing, communication also seems to be important between sexual partners.
I hope that most people are not afraid to talk about it, because that's the whole. There's the whole stigma about talking about sex and about your desires and your needs, and you're afraid of you have a fear of judgment. That's, I think, also comes back. That is holding people back to talk about it.
Oh, I love this topic about communication, because I always tell my girls, like, dude, communication is the essence of the whole sexual thing, because if you have a partner, he can't look into your head. How is he supposed to know what gets you going and whatnot? Same with him. Like, you're not a Wonder Woman that can read every guy. So he sort of has to communicate what's good for him and what's not, and you have to do the same, which is super, super hard for a lot of people, because let's say you don't know that person that well, and even if it's a long-term relationship, it's a bit difficult to sometimes, be open about it. But I just say, try it once and you will not get disappointed, in the sense that you don't have to sit down and say, like, okay, I'm going to write a list and this is what I like, and then we compare, and if it's not enough, then we're not going to have sex. That's not going to work. But what most of the times is so easy, it's just maneuvering. Let's say you are already in bed with a person. It's just taking the hand and putting it on your body where you want it. That, I swear to you, that guy is going to follow. Most of the partners, whether male or female, are happy when they get an indication of where to go or not, because they want just to pleasure you just as much as you want to give pleasure to them.
Whereas I think that if you barely know each other and you're not that at ease and you can't talk to each other as freely, it's personally but just more difficult, that I can't just come out and say this or that. And you're always thinking also about there's a third consciousness in everything you do, where you're thinking, what does this person think about what I'm doing? And so it's, again, not only will you not be able to say what you want, but then it also inhibits you to let your guards down. So you're always also in your head. And I think that you can't really feel the pleasure, because I think pleasure is also something just physical, and I mean, you just let it happen. But if you're in your head, then you're in your head. You won't feel it.
I think this is in general something that a lot of people could focus on with their sexual relationships, is communication. Not just important to like having good sex, but also important to like having a healthy sexual relationship with someone where both of you are happy. And because I've also been in relationships where I think I probably made people do things that deep down they probably didn't want to do actually, but rather in the circumstance they kind of felt that they had to, and that sucks. It's not cool.
Lots of women, they're reserved to communicate about their desires. And they're scared of when they don't have sex, when they are able to penetrate, they will lose their partners. You have to feel yourself very safe, very comfortable, to let know what you like, what you really like.
Whenever I'm seeing someone new, I'm very conscious and concerned about how I look during sex, which keeps me from completely letting go.
It seems that the lack of communication is not just something that occurs due to fear, but also due to a lack of confidence. Our research found that this lack of confidence is arising out of media portrayals of women and their sexual pleasure, which is creating wrong expectations for men as well as women.
What I do think advertisement is doing a lot of times, if you look, there was a really iconic Dolce & Gabbana picture, pretty widely known. It's like this woman who's like wearing a bikini or almost nothing to bikini, laying on the floor with like 4 guys or 5 guys in like really fancy suits on top of her, next to her. And I think that's something that for me was quite shocking. Especially like, you know, having those internal pictures of exactly the situation was really not that nice. But I also think that suddenly it's okay to publicly show a picture like that and publicly saying it's okay, where I really got offended. And I was like, young boys see that picture and they won't know that it's not okay. Because yes, on the picture it doesn't seem like anyone is in discomfort. It's an ad. But I think in real life that situation will be completely different.
There's a lot of very heavy sexualization in adverts. For example, adverts just being one thing. I mean, men can also be very heavily sexualized as well, and of course, like sexualization of something doesn't necessarily have to be bad, but to make someone just consume something, it's really appealing to just someone's very base desire. So, in a way, it's a very like scandalous thing to try and manipulate someone with.
I think media set wrong expectations for me and made me feel bad about my body and how I want to have sex sometimes. Also, yeah, media is also very heteronormative, and it's only very late on that I discovered that maybe I wasn't so heterosexual, and then it was a whole process of coming to terms with that idea and having to let go of all these ideas that are preset in your mind because of the media, and it's something that I'm still struggling with.
Yeah, I think it's a huge problem with the media, because the media always show nice women, very thin, and always give the message that it's very important and that you're looking beautiful. But I know that a lot of films give the message of that sex is really. You have to have sex, and it's very easily. When you touch, you will get an orgasm in 1 minute, and so on. And that doesn't help as well.
We are confronted with media representations of women every day, and this over-sexualized commodification of women blurs the line between traditional media and porn. After all, sex sells.
I think pornography is is something which very much changes the relationship that people can have to sexual pleasure.
I think the porn industry has a huge influence. I think that makes girls seem as these like instant sexual beings who are just constantly on the verge of wanting to orgasm, and you touch them for like 2 seconds and then they're orgasm.
Of course, it's totally out of balance, I would say. It's all about the male that's dominating the female.
I mean, also I have to say that I guess like for me and for most other boys my age, like our sex education was really pornography that we consumed when we were teenagers. There can be some benefits to that. It can teach you like, you know, where to touch, and like you can help you explore different kinds of sex and stuff. Of course, it's also very limiting because, you know, a lot of pornography is very brutal.
I don't know, what there's certain categories of porn that is just, it's too far off. It's no sex anymore. It's no love and caring about each other's desires and needs. It's just like a sort of fulfilling of your own ego and of your own desires, and not sharing that emotions and feelings together anymore.
A common theme surrounding porn is that it does not represent reality. This is where OMGS comes in, which is a research-based platform aiming to break the taboo. The website contains interactive videos where everyday women demonstrate how they masturbate to show other women and men the many ways that women can experience pleasure.
I was so intrigued by it because it was, for the first time, it wasn't, I think my partner thought it was going to be like, oh cool, porn, like we get to see girls touching themselves. I was like, no, it's just research. It's research, and quite boring in many senses because you're just watching a woman touch herself, and she isn't like the ideal blonde, big-breasted, skinny-waist woman. She's just a normal woman like any one of us.
If I want a long, luxurious orgasm, I don't stimulate the hot spot on my clit. I'll tease it, and then I'll stimulate it, and then right when I'm about to come, I'll just let it go, and I'll stop for a minute.
Smart girl, same.
My sensitive spot is to the upper right side of my clit. Sometimes it doesn't work for me to rub this upper right side. My sensitive spot will kind of move, and I'll have to hunt it down, so I'll try less pressure in a different area.
Well, she knows
And
herself
sometimes
very
I can
well.
find the spot. Always I can find the spot that way. It's just not where I thought it would be. I'm using this part of my finger from the top of my fingertip to the top knuckle. And then if I want to have a long, intense orgasm, then I'll rub this spot.
That's so
until
interesting
I'm
how
right
different
about to
people
come,
are.
and then I'll
Like,
stop.
I'd never do it that way.
And I won't touch myself again for a few seconds. And then I'll start with a bigger motion with less pressure. And I'll concentrate on that spot again. I'll let it build 2 or 3 times before I'll let myself come. The longer that I let it build, the longer and more intense my orgasms are.
Well, she definitely seems like she knows what she's doing.
Would you use it? Such a website that kind of shows you.
I guess I'm definitely intrigued. I would definitely check it out to like see how other people do it. In the sense that I'd probably never meet her. In that sense, I don't feel like a weirdo checking her out. And I find it super interesting that somebody's so open to let you film such an intense part. I mean, talking about it is one thing, but then showing off, fine, another one.
I don't know. It seems like a tutorial, you know, and I think that every woman's body is different, so I think maybe if you don't know anything about it, sure, this might help, but I don't know, maybe you should just figure it out for yourself, kind of.
Videos like this could be, yeah, I mean, it could be really useful in regards to what I was talking about, you know, having greater communication with sex, because, yeah, of course, it's much more like an instruction video than like pornography. I mean, it's not pornography. It's not really arousing just to watch that. It's educational.
I don't know if it was the same for the others. I can only speak for myself, but it really kind of disappointed me of that site that they still have this idea that, well, you can train yourself, you know?
And it's not the same for every girl. And I think that's something which, oh my God, yes, teaches you, is that it isn't the way one girl touches herself, the way one girl feels, and the way one girl likes to like get off is completely different to the way that your partner will.
At the same time, I think you would have to have quite an open-minded guy to want to watch that. I think a lot of guys might be like put off having to like, you know, if like their girlfriends made them watch an instruction manual on like how to rub a vagina or something.
And I think, oh my God, yes, was a chance for me to say, okay, I can't explain it. Here's like a perfect here's a perfect video, and I would send him links like, hey, this is something you should look out for, and like, that's also awesome, like, use this, you know? It was like it was a way for me to not actually have to sit there and explain it or like show him. It was just like, hey, watch this video, now try it out on me.
Like, I think like the idea is really great, and I think it's really smart to do that. It's probably like a really good tool also, like, education wise. Is it for me? Not really. It's a little too face on, literally.
What I found interesting is how close up they go to the vagina, and I think this is a really, really good thing in the sense that I believe that a lot of people do not actually, they haven't seen an actual vagina that is not theirs, whether in real life or on screen, especially women, because let's say even in porn, we don't have that many close-up of a vagina that is not there to actually motivate sexual pleasure for men or for women. We don't actually see a real vagina just for how it is. And that's something I think this spot really, really portrays.
It almost feels kind of clinical, you know, that you're just like, so that's how also strange it is to me, because I'm not used to seeing women's bodies like this, that it's just, you know, like, if I've seen a vagina that close, it's either probably, I don't know, like that. I mean, I don't, you know, either it's like a medical video or it's porn, you know?
But can initiatives like OMGS really be successful? Is there even a taboo to break surrounding female masturbation?
I'm gonna just say this, which is really kind of embarrassing but kind of funny, but I didn't know that women could masturbate until the age of 19. I had no idea. So that goes to show how poorly I was educated about sex.
I think female masturbation is a lot harder than men's. I think men, it's a lot easier to reach an orgasm. And I think with girls, like, it's very hard to explicitly explain how you come to feeling in a certain way.
I would say that in the media at large, it's very, just talking about masturbation is something that all men do apparently and all day long, but then when a woman masturbates, that's suddenly super erotic and super arousing for everyone apparently.
There seems to be a lack of knowledge and acceptance of female masturbation and sex. This leads us to question what their sexual education was like, especially since our survey showed that only 4 out of 10 people are satisfied with their sexual education.
Education should focus more on, like, it should focus more on the emotional part of it. I feel like it focuses a lot on the, you know, biological part, like this is what happens, this is how you protect yourself, you know. But I think that, well, at least in my past, we never talked about the emotions you go through.
The sex education that you, at least I did in class, like, didn't really refer to pleasure at all. I mean, the only things I really remember is, like, learning big long lists of STDs and how to put a condom on a dildo.
They should do it better than what I had in my high school, because that was not helpful at all. I guess it was just creating even more of this taboo around it, where having sex became really something that was dangerous, you know, watch out, you might catch an illness, which of course that's true and you should definitely be very careful with this, but it was really all about the dangers of having sex rather than about the benefits. And it's really, I guess, it gives the children really this idea that sex is bad unless you do it with someone that you can completely trust and, like, with whom you're going to have children.
Like the education I had in school, like, didn't really like teach me anything about like communication with a partner, or also even just like the fact that other forms of relationships could exist than like monogamous relationships and stuff.
Well, for example, the anatomy of the woman body. Yeah, it's good to tell also how they can learn to enjoy to have sex. Yeah, what they need for it. So you have to give information, a combination of education and information. The clitoris is much larger than most people know. Most people think it's only a small button.
But I think the clitoris is like this, maybe, inside? Or is it tiny?
That dark pink bit.
All of that? Like the whole little heart thing?
Like, yeah.
Holy shit, it's quite nice that it's a heart shape too. Holy crap.
It's huge, but women don't know it, and you cannot see it in books. In anatomical books you don't see a picture about the real clitoris. So there's also a lack of information for women.
And I think we should have more of it in the sense that selectively in sex education actually have real pictures and videos of how it works. Also, what happens when you spread it, what happens when the fluid comes out, to like also teach you that it's nothing disgusting.
But in reality, if we were told by teachers and adults, and in a very caring and respectful way, actually girls, all of you have the potential to have an awesome time in bed. Why are we so afraid of that? Why are we so afraid of the fact that two bodies are naked and touching each other?
We acknowledge that every woman is different in terms of their sexual desires, but not everyone has the same level of education about this topic, leading to serious implications. Education as it stands is not sufficient enough in order to make people feel comfortable to communicate and explore their own body. Media also should make a clear effort to portray sex in a realistic way to prevent the creation of wrong expectations for people. We feel these efforts would help to open up the dialogue so we can finally talk about sex.